Hey, this is my review of The Suicide Squad, not to be confused with Suicide Squad. If you want to know if you should see it, you definitely should. It's a strong recommend. One of the better movies I've seen this summer, which lets you know how bad the movies have been this summer. If you want to know if your kids can watch it, probably not. I don't know. It's heavy-duty violence, horror level with blood and gore, lots of swearing, but I don't know what your kids are into, so yeah, that's up to you. Otherwise, here's a bunch of spoilers about The Suicide Squad, not to be confused with Suicide Squad. The first Suicide Squad movie with Will Smith and Margot Robbie and Jared Leto's Joker, which apparently was cut way out. That one took a beating. It had a whole bunch of production trouble. They made, the dude who directed it was kind of a dark, gritty director, and they wanted more like a pop-up-tempo Marvel type movie. So they took the people who cut the trailer for the film, and the trailer had huge success. People were excited about it, and then the movie they were going to deliver didn't look anything like the trailer. So they brought the people who made the trailer in to recut the movie and try to like add a bunch of music and jokes, and they shot a few new scenes or whatever. So it feels disjointed and kind of like one long montage. I wasn't that hard on it. A lot of people was waiting to, crap all over it, but overall it was all right, whatever, whatever. But then the second one, I don't know if it can be called a second Suicide Squad movie, but the second Harley Quinn movie, the Birds of Prey or Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn, something like that. I don't know why they would do this to me with that title. But regardless, it wasn't good at all. I gave it a big thumbs down. It had a bunch of I love mindless violence, but this mindless violence felt like just angry at men violence, which, I think you should talk things out before you break people's kneecaps, but I don't know, whatever, to each her own. So since DC was having trouble getting their film universe off the ground, it's been real rocky, something good will come out and then, they'll drop the ball immediately afterwards. Joker and Wonder Woman, real strong, but then the Joss Whedon cut of the Zack Snyder Justice League movie. The people who made this decided now to bring in the guy who made the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And that's what this new Suicide Squad feels more like. It's like a Guardians of the Galaxy type movie, or a little bit like Thor Ragnarok. It's funny, but it's not funny like old school Adam West Batman funny, where they just make fun of how stupid all this comic book stuff is. Instead, they go out of their way to keep it real and keep it, grounded in reality, but then just the people's reaction to things is funny. James Gunn, the director, not only for Guardians of the Galaxy, he started out doing trauma stuff like Toxic Avenger. He didn't do Toxic Avenger, but the company that does that, you know what I mean? Get on board with my train of thought here. And then the first time I became familiar with him is when he did Slither, which is, kind of in the ballpark of this. Same with Super, which is a superhero movie with Rainn Wilson. But otherwise, yeah, this is very derivative of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. The King Shark is very similar to, I would say, the Groot character, like Big Groot, I guess. And then the little rat is kind of similar to Baby Groot. Although the rat kind of also has a little bit of Rocket Raccoon in it. And then the rest of the time, it's just, people jockeying for strength within the group dynamic. But my main issue with all of these movies, oh, by the way, Idris Elba's hilarious. I didn't think he would be good in a comedy. I don't know why, but yeah, he's surprisingly hilarious. Is there anything this man cannot do? One of the things that really went well in this movie is the final villain. Like, all these movies kind of have these interpersonal stories about people, and then they work their way up to like just about the middle of the third act, and suddenly they introduce some giant Technicolor nightmare monster that looks like a final boss in a PS3 game. And that's because it is. They have to know that action figures and video games and all that are a huge licensing tie-in. So they design the movie to be video game ready. And they always have these awful video game final bosses that just don't look right in the real world. So this movie kind of swings into that. They give you a giant kaiju starfish. So, I don't really care about the other villains. Like at the end of Wonder Woman, I vaguely remember that fire monster thing. And then in the Justice League, I sort of remember what Steppenwolf looks like. But then later on, they had Darkseid, and I barely remember what he looks like. At least the non-comic book version. But in my opinion, this final villain looks more like something out of a really good episode of Power Rangers. You know, I'll always remember the giant kaiju starfish who shoots the little starfish out of its armpits, and then it like manipulates people by, you know, having starfish on their face. You know, that's kind of nightmare fuel. And that's one of the reasons I warned up front to keep your kids away from it. But when the summer started, you look at a movie like Army of the Dead, and it was like, oh, this is supposed to be fun, and I bet I'm gonna enjoy this. And it was just kind of a blurry, sad, you know, bummer letdown. It was a movie made by someone who was depressed, and you can tell it's a movie made by someone who's depressed. But then, what's it called? Tomorrow War came out, and that was more lighthearted, and it had more like, you know, Tremors vibe to it, as well as, you know, like a weird kind of Armageddon vibe to it. So overall, I had to give that one a thumbs up, but it was just a nice respite from all the other boring crap. At least that had something in it that was interesting and entertaining. But I'm still gonna have to go with best movie this year I've seen is No Sudden Move, but that's more like an adult, thinky, grown-up crime drama sort of thing. But, you know, you gotta pay attention to a lot of twists and turns. As far as just like fun at the movies, this is probably the champ of the summer. I'm very pleased with it. But then again, it's quite possible that I only really like this movie because I saw so much other crap. Space Jam, I'm looking in your direction. We'll have to see when Hugh Jackman's new sci-fi movie comes out, then later on this year when The Matrix comes out. But as far as movies for the summer goes, this is exactly what I'm looking for. It's hilarious from beginning to end. It's shot amazingly. It's memorable. I've already seen it twice. So yeah, go watch The Suicide Squad. Have fun.